Oh shit. Assalamualaikum and a very good day to all present today. Welcome to the second round of English debate competition, InterVarsity Science e-Debate Challenge 2021. The motion for this debate is, this House would grant human rights to sentient robots. I am Ainin, and I will be the chairperson and the timekeeper for Room 7. Let me now introduce the debaters to you. Acting as the government team for this debate is the team from Let's Yamcha, with Ms. Yap as the Prime Minister, Ms. Ely as the Deputy Prime Minister, and Ms. Diva as the Government Whip. Acting as the opposition team for this debate is team from UTP with Mr. Melson as the opposition leader, Mr. Zulfadli as the second opposition speaker, and Ms. Fifi as the opposition whip. Our panel of adjudicator consists of Ms. Intan from Uniten and Mr. Lo Siu Ming from MIU. Okay, let's start. Now we come to our debate today. To open the case from the government team, I call upon the Prime Minister to start the debate session. Wait 1 second. Let me put you on screen first. Okay, you can begin whenever you're ready.
So I was first talking that can you, or if you want to POI, please unmute yourself, and then sorry for not turn on cam. I'm going to count down 3, 2, 1 to start my speech. Okay, 3, 2, 1. So today, our government side is going to support why we should grant the human rights to the sentient robot. What we are granting, what the normal rights, what the human right we are granting. It is the normal rights alike to human beings, such as basic rights to and freedom, the right to life, the right to free from cruelty, and torture, the right to equal treatment and receive protection from the law, and the right of freedom of thought, opinion, and expressions. So, in Malaysia scope, it is mean that have a right to be a Malaysian citizens, like we are granting them the IC of being a Malaysian citizens. And how about what's the other example of what these human rights being granted? For example, in 2017, there's the sentient robot Sophia. She was given the citizenship of Saudi Arabia in 2017. And what is sentient robot in these motions? Sentient robot is the one can feel emotion, positive or negative, sad or happy, they can feel they are wanted by the society. They have rationale and decision on their own based on the choice available to them. And it can be more sophisticated than we human can. They're programmed, and based on what benefits to them, it will solely depends on how society treat them in returns. If the society is bad, they won't contribute back, and they have a chance to be. And we thus needs to give attention for them. This is something we can uncover if we didn't give attention the consequences to robots and to the humans. If we incorporated the sentient robot into the workforce, we should give privileges like worker to be given like promotion and holidays. And our status quo now is that the sentient robots is not given human rights in most of the countries. And our scope of debate is that we are focusing on the humans and the sentient robots, and how this granting of human rights will benefit the humans and benefit the sentient robot as well. And for our mechanisms, we are now speaking on, we are going to providing them legal rights such as citizenship and rights to necessities and right to equal treatment from the law. And secondly, our mechanism is that we are going to have the acknowledgement from the United Nations to being recognized from the international communities. And our burden of proof in this debate, in this debate, the opposition side burden of proof would be they have to prove sentient robot by granting the human rights, the sentient robot will detrimental to sentient robot themselves and the human themselves. So I will first start with my arguments. My first argument is by granting the human rights, we are giving the legal rights to them and to protect them, and as well as giving the contribution to the society. And then we are going to protect them from the negative actions like robbery and rapes, and we will actually benefit from it as well. So there's no more there's no more discriminations where the privilege is being protected. So we say it is okay to grant the legal rights to protect the sentient robot in workplace. For example, we are going to regulate the law to protect them from the harassment, to protect them from the overwork, to give them the holidays like how we human do. Because sentient robot, when they are going to have the emotions, there's no difference between them and a human being in psychological aspect and more other sophisticated aspect. So that should be treated as what the human did. And what the human's nature would do is what their nature would do as a sentient robots. And by granting the human rights, the overwork means that they won't like overwork other than the time stipulated, like 8 hours per day. They won't overwork. This overwork will prevent them themselves from being exhausted, and their workforce is not like
Yeah.
rested. Sorry, no. So it is the method that we are going to keep them from like being still going to like be productive. And what it actually benefit from the human side, because we are no going to force them, because they have emotion and they have rational and decisions, so they have the own capacity rationale to do the decision based on the options available to them. So for example, if the emotion, we can, if our giving the holiday to them, we can add positive to them. Of course, like human nature, people treat us good, we'll treat them back with goods. So by granting this human right, they are, oh yeah, stand with the humans, they can add the positive back to them. This is what the human will do. So they are giving the workforce and being productive to like make the things go better in terms of the industrial sections and for more another service sections. And we say it is a must to protect them from the negative actions in the society, such as robbery, trespass of the property, and discrimination at the workplace. So the human society is full of negative actions that normal human being with a set range of emotion will normally be protected from. So this protection is naturally provided by the legislations and the general legal framework that each of the society have. So how they are going to benefit from that, and so they will don't be tortured. They are not going to be harmed by this. For example, they are not going to like separate part by part from the human being. So they are treating equally. So how we actually benefit from it, we can avoid the evil side. For example, the revenge from the robots. So they won't do this in return. Thus, we are proud to say that there's no more discriminations and provide safer environments. We are proudly to rest our case.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Yap. To open the case from the opposition team, I call upon the leader of opposition to continue the debate session. Mr. Melson?
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are.
All right, just give me a few seconds.
All right, just tell us when you're ready.
All right, okay. Starting my speech in three, two, one. I think that we on side opposition, right? At the end of the day, no matter what feelings or extent that a robot can have, right? They do not feel the same extent as what a human goes through throughout their daily life, right? So we we tell you that in status quo, robots in of itself are just robots in general, right? Which means that uh, they are robots in general and they do not equate to the same value or emotional aspects of a human in of itself, even if they can feel those certain types of feeling in the first place, right? I think the burden of proof on us at the house is to tell you that why sentience in of itself is not the ultimate yardstick for human rights. That's number one. And number two, why having sentient itself brings more harm than good in the first place, right? So a stakeholder analysis of who's going to be involved in this debate is number one is of course the human beings as well as the minorities and the vulnerable beings, human beings itself that is involved, and number two, sentient robots in the first place, right? So a few responses towards side government, right? Their whole idea of giving them human rights in the first place is the idea for them to not get somehow not get them overworked within the workforce, right? We tell you that this interface itself just defeats the whole purpose of why robots are created in the first place, right? Because robots are created in the first place to make life easier for humans, right? That means working long hours that don't need breaks, that don't need certain kind of stuff. Because we tell you that these are the kind of stuff that robots don't even feel in the first place. Yes, they may feel emotions, but we tell you that they don't feel overtired, overworked, they don't feel overtired within the first place, right? So
AI.
why is there a need to protect them from overworking within the first place, right? But before that, yes, PY.
Previously, you said that robots, the emotions that the sentient robots are feeling are not equal to human emotions, right? But can you clarify to me how do you exactly measure a human emotions? Because the set of range of emotions that each human being feel is totally different from each other. So can you provide an explanation on that?
All right, I'll get to that in my speech, and it's actually a whole argument covered based upon that. Okay, so moving on to my uh, analysis of what makes something human, right? Understand that something to be able to be human is that the humans have the ability to make humans have the ability to make rational decisions in the first place, right? That means they are able to differentiate between the idea of what is right and what is wrong, right? Because humans in of itself, they are moral beings. uh, in of itself, they are more moral beings, right? Which means that sentient robots in of itself do not clash their emotions based on their decision making, right? These are two separate things, right? They make decisions based on the algorithm and factual data without actually factoring in the emotions, right? They judge these kinds of stuff separately, right? Which means that we tell you that in as a human, if a person on the other side of the world shares the same emotions, we are able to make rational decisions based on that certain kinds of issues, right? Which means that now we tell you that problems such as the Palestinians or Israeli issues within the first place, we tell you that robots are not the best person to make certain type of decision because they are just going to make this kind of decision based on their algorithm and the factual data without actually factoring in the emotional suffering that we are going to be that humans feel throughout the way, right? So which we which we can stretch out this issue into the idea that animals also do experience emotion, but we don't see them giving animals human rights in the first place, right? Because
POI,
in of
please.
itself we have our own IQs in the first place. No, I won't be taking the POI. And previously, that POI just realized it's your burden to prove, not my burden. Okay. Secondly, which move on to my second layer of analysis, right? The range of suffering that a human goes through does not equate to the same sense of what a robot goes through within the first place, right? Because understand that humans cannot opt out of their physical attribute. This looks like if you're being born black in America, that's your fate. innovate. If you're being born as an LGBTQ community in Malaysia, that's your fate. These are things that humans could not be able to opt out of our very attribute within the first place, right? Where meanwhile robots innovate itself, they already have this certain type of privilege where they are being already been manufactured and engineered by human beings within the first place, which means that they already have a certain type of privilege or the upper hand over human beings in the first place, right? Means that robots already have some sort of a privilege since the day they were created, and they don't experience the same birth lottery that humans do, right? The idea in of itself that their range of suffering do not extend to the same of human, which means that they don't feel the hunger issues that we are going through in the first place. They don't get health issues within the long run. They don't feel tired. They do not feel hungry, or they don't feel thirsty. These are some things that do not equate to the same kinds of suffering that what human goes through, the same kind of feelings that what human is able to achieve and feel in the first place. And we tell you that even if sentient robots are able to feel these kinds of feelings, it's not as if it's a huge extent. It's just on the surface and it's on the shallow things, right? The impact of this is that robots do not fulfill these kinds of yardsticks, and we tell you they should not, in of itself, be granted human rights in the first place, right?
Right.
Second argument in the first place, no, we as humans are not able to uphold human rights in the first place, because in status quo there's a huge amount of human rights abuses throughout the world, right? And instead we can see these human rights abuses happening in China, happening in Palestine within the first place, right? The United Nations are already struggling to solve these kinds of issues and atrocity to for the present humans within the first place, right? So which means that granting robots human rights in of itself already means dedicating resources to expand towards their rights and to be able to cater them, right? Understand that the LGBTQ community got their human rights being recognized by the United Nations because there was already resources available to these kinds of community, resources that are available to be able to spread out towards conservative country in order to be able to push for their movement and push forwards for their rights, right? We tell you that granting robust human rights, which means just spending unnecessary resources towards them, and if we tell you that it's better to divert these kinds of resources towards better and meaningful things such as the LGBTQ community and the human rights in order to fight for these human rights, right? The tangible harm is that on uh, on your side of the house, that if humans are able to abuse human right, it is not impossible for robots to abuse these kinds of human right in the first place, because there's no guarantee that robots do not abuse these human right within the first place, right? Therefore we tell you go with side opposition.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Melson. To continue our debate today, I call upon the Deputy Prime Minister to continue the case for their side. Ms. Ely.
Yeah, can you give me a second, please? Sorry.
Yes. I will just not show the timer.
The timer doesn't show, does it?
Because the time lags, but the sound is right. So the first bell marks for the first minute, and the second bell marks the 6 minute.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. For a second, yeah. I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So a very good day I bid to the adjudicators and my fellow debaters. The motion for today's debate is this House would grant human rights to sentient robots. Now, we, the government side, support this motion, and with very good reason why. As the second speaker of the government side, I would address all the weaknesses in the arguments given by the leader of opposition, the leader of opposition side had brought up, and present the government's case on this issue. So first of all, the leader of opposition had stated that robots are made to extend the workforce that humans would not be able to achieve. And that is why they should not be given human rights. Well, let me tell you something. The reason why we are supposed to give them human rights is because they feel certain emotions. And if they feel like they've been overworked, wouldn't that exhaust them at one point, since they already have the emotions in the first place? Other than that, the leader of opposition had also stated that humans do not have the advanced ability to feel sentiment as we humans have. Other than that, animals also don't have the same ability to feel the extent of emotions that humans have. But we still grant animals animal rights. We still protect them from abuse. We still give them the right to freedom. So you can't equate the fact that they can't feel the same level of sentiment as we do to not granting them rights. And also they stated that it would be a waste of resources. The leader of opposition stated that it will be a waste of resources. The issue the government side has on this is that it's not really a relevant issue, as if they are worth it. If you already gave them human emotions, you're giving them human emotions, and suddenly you don't want to protect that. That is a waste of effort on behalf of the creators, and saying that it will be a waste of resources to give them human rights because they have to go through a whole legislative progress. They even human rights such as the LGBT or certain ethnicical groups don't have the certain human rights, but still everyone is fighting for it. So why can't we fight for human rights on behalf of the robots who have feelings? You can't just disregard their feelings just because they're robots and they don't equate to the same level of emotional appeal that humans have. That is inhumane and that is immoral. That is also
PI?
unethical.
PI?
Yes, before I start. Yeah.
So tell me why sentience is the only yardstick for you to measure why robots can also make political decisions such as voting.
Okay, first of all, this already contradicts to your own statement, because you stated that robots, they make their opinions based on algorithm. So of course they would be having the right to vote, and their right to vote will be based on algorithm. So moving on to my first point. My first point is that the robot should have the right to maintenance. This can be seen from, for example, a child who can be cared for, or a wife who can be maintained. These robots should have the same rights to be maintained by their creators, by their owners. And this is why, and this is because they have been created for a certain purpose. Okay, they have been created for a certain purpose, so it shouldn't be right to let them scrap metal. So the right of maintenance is actually a human right that should be granted to these robots. These rights are important to make sure that they understand their importance in their responsibility to humans, and humans understand their responsibility to sentient robots. They can't disregard them as a thing that has no feelings, a thing that is just because they have no soul. Let's say they don't have any soul. They have a brain to think, and therefore they are able to feel human emotions. Maybe not the same way, but to a certain extent. And that is why we can't disregard it. And the benefit of granting robots the right to maintenance, the right to not be neglected, the right to have a substantial feeling of life for of a family, let's say, it's to, in a way, it brings out the emotion of the robot to higher bonds with humans, to higher bonds of feeling connected with humans, to a higher bonds of feeling their responsibility to humans. So they establish responsibility to humans, and they establish the mutual feelings of responsibility, the mutual responsibility of human to robot and robot to human. My second point would be on the right of these robots to also be respected. And we gave them, it must be stressed on, okay, we give these robots feelings. It would be crueler if we disregard these feelings just based on the fact that they are metal. They don't have soul, and therefore they don't have to be respected. Mutual respect is important so that they will not feel like a piece of metal being rejected or ridiculed. It would benefit them for feeling more appreciated as a part of society. And if if you can regard them as part of a society according to their contribution, they are part of society according to their contribution, why would you neglect giving them human rights? Why would you defer on giving them human rights? So to prevent them, this also prevents them from purposely malfunctioning because they don't feel important in the side of society. So it's crueler. It's crueler in the fact that if side opposition would like to insist on the fact that robots shouldn't be given human rights, sentimental or sentient robots shouldn't be given human rights, just because they can't feel the same level of extent of human emotions as humans can. That to me is inhumane. And as the advanced species, we should know better. And because of that reasons, ladies and gentlemen, in referring to the points that I have presented, the government side has clearly elaborated on the greater weightage on why we must support today's motion, in the detriment on why we should, and if we oppose, it would be inhumane and unethical. I hope the floor will also agree in supporting today's motion. With that, I rest my case.
Thank you, Ms. Ely. Okay, moving on. Now I call upon the Deputy Leader of Opposition to continue the case for their side.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. I prefer POIs to be like voiced out. So if you, I won't have the chat box open. So if you want a POI, just like unmute your mic. All right. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Two questions that I hope government will answer in their next speech. Number one, what do robots eat? And number two, like, do they actually require sleep? These two questions alone shows to you the difference in extent of like the abilities that robots have over humans. Robots don't feel hunger. Robots don't feel exhaustion from working long hours. We think it's quite unlikely that these robots will actually feel worked out and overstressed and deserving of work rights, because they already been designed to not only work long hours, but even in the point at which that they malfunction, we can easily replace their parts and actually still continue for them to actually keep doing their jobs, right? I think it's been very clear that the government is very unwilling to actually engage with the entire crux of our argument about how this will look like to our minorities. Notice how they never want to engage to you how they will look like when they actually want to give this rights over your own LGBT members, over your own minorities, over your own African Americans in America, over your own Muslim women in France, right? These are all the people that we want to protect, and that we rather have all of our resources in upholding human rights that actually is deserving to the humans that are on the ground who are suffering today. But before that, a few clarifications, right? I think my speech is going to be simple. Number one, I'm going to completely prove to you that robots are currently not experiencing any of the abuses that the government is telling you. And number two, show to you the comparative as to how that humans, the sheer difference of what makes someone human that they still never want to engage with, and why we should be the one to be taking this debate. Few rebuttals before that. Number one, they tell you that we grant animals rights. These animal rights is not the same as human rights. Animals still get tested, just like the motion that you had yesterday. Animals still get eaten by humans, and yet and no one talks anything about that, right? Human rights is very different in the sense that these people can vote, these people can get work benefits, they can get union benefits, and they are able to get things like shelter, right? The reason why it is difficult to even give them these rights in the first place is because, number one, it is unintuitive to even have these people being granted citizenship, because any political decision that government makes for them doesn't benefit or even harm them in any shape or manner, right? We see like in Malaysia when we make like things like SOPs to actually cut down your jobs, actually cut down the resources that you have to actually buy food. Robots don't feel hunger. They don't feel the same pain that humans have when they're actually struggling for food. And we have things like campaign Bendera Putih to actually look for food and look for basic needs, right? These robots don't feel that same sheer need to actually vote for these people, right? So we don't see why these people are actually like deserving of like a citizenship and whatnot. We tell you already that these robots don't feel the same pain or I don't feel the same stress that government is telling you because they've already been designed to work long hours. And that anytime that their parts break, we just replace it with a new one. When humans lose hands or when humans lose their limbs from an accident, they're unable to ever get it back again. At best, we can replace it with like a prosthetic leg, but you'll never get the same thing again. And that's like another things that actually clarifies what the sheer difference between humans and robots are. Robots have an innate like bionic advantages like not feeling hunger, not feeling pain to the severe degree that a human does. We think that if government is going to point fingers and say that, oh, it is opposition's burden to actually quantify these harms, we also say it's also on government's burden to actually quantify or also these measures as to why that these people actually deserve rights in the first place, right? So now we covered as to all the responses from both speakers. Let's move on into the activities, right?
QI,
First off,
please.
I'll take you later. First off, robots don't experience abuses, right? I think that in both speakers, they never give you an example, a very high-profile examples as to when robots are being harassed. They never tell you things as to how robots are being harassed for long hours. They never give you specific examples as to when robots actually accounted having this like stressed out hours and never tell to you as to how these people are being discriminated, right? At least on the opposition side, we tell you how women are being discriminated in the workplace. We tell you that like Uyghur Muslims and like Palestinian children are being harmed to a severe degree, and even then we still struggle to give them rights. The reason why this argument is so important is because we don't see a need for granting robots human rights or granting them all these benefits if it's clear that these robots don't need it. If these robots don't feel hunger, if these robots don't see the need to actually monetize and make money so that they could survive, then why is it that it is the human's responsibility to cater for this, right? We tell you, we already shown to you right from Melson's speech from the get-go that the range of suffering that a human faces is completely different. Melson tells you that these people actually factor in these emotional biases into their decisions, unlike a robot using algorithms. We further nuance it by telling you about how these people how these robots don't experience hunger the way people do. We show you how like there's so many different characteristics between a robot and a human that it is principally unjustified to actually give human rights towards these robots, right? It is unintuitive to do so, and even in government's best case scenario, where they still want to tell you, oh, sentience is still, the yardstick for human rights. We still tell you that it is unintuitive also to give out human rights to you, and you are unable to hold them, right? That is the entire analysis that must give you never being catered to in the first place, right? Before I move on into the comparative of both worlds, and research actually fulfills that burden, I'll take a POI.
Okay, thank you. First of all, we want to clarify that the side of government, we do not reduce other rights. We are just saying that robots should be able to get their rights as well. We are not saying that other the way you are saying it is like we are implying that it isn't.
Two things there. Number one, yes, like if you want to argue on the principle basis, but both Melson and me have already proven that sentience is not the ultimate yardstick for human rights. We tell you that robots don't make the same decisions that humans do. We tell you that robots don't feel the same suffering that humans do. We tell you that robots don't feel the same political, financial, or even like physical pain to the same degree that a human does whenever their governments feel them, right? We already told you that. And number two, the reason why it is important to actually bring this up is because if it's true that you want to uphold human rights, then it is also true on government's burden that you have to prove that, oh, we're going to give out resources to actually uphold these rights. Give them resources for citizenship. Give them resources for all these like vacations. Give them these resources for like paid for financials and stuff. These robots don't need those. And you know who needs those things? Actual human beings, actual women who have been harassed in the workplace and suffering huge amounts of trauma because of that. We are the side that actually protects humans on the ground. We are the side that actually proves to you the principle argumentation of why sentience is not the yardstick for human rights. Proud to oppose.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. Thank you. Um, I shall now call upon the government whip to rebut. Wait,
Hello, am I audible? All
yes.
right, thank you. Okay, I'll start my speech in one, two, three. All right. First of all, I would like to begin my speech by answering the two questions that were posed by the deputy leader of the opposition, which is number one, do robots sleep? Of course, robots don't have the same amount of needs in terms of what a human being should experience, which is quality sleep or quality rest, as in we need a minimum 8 hours sleep per day. But still, robots do need rest because we need to prevent them from overheating and overworking their composition that is basically their parts. And number two, the answer to answer the question, which is whether what exactly does robot eat? Well, of course, they don't eat biological material that we eat on a daily basis, but still robots do not run on air because they still need to be charged, they still need power supply on a constant basis. And and to move on in today's debate, firstly, I would like to bid a very good day to everyone. So in today's debate, side government is pushing for a world where sentient robots are given an equal standing as what a normal human being would get, with the same entitlement as what a normal human being should be getting. The principal model for granting human rights for sentient robots is based on the cooperative connection that exists between an individual and the society at large. So this individual here doesn't only include normal human being, but should include the sentient robots as well. Whereas side opposition is pushing for a world where we totally disregard the fact that these robots have achieved sentience and they're able to experience a full range of emotions that what a normal human being would get. And these emotions doesn't only isn't only exclusive for positive emotions, but also they are able to feel negative emotions such as sadness, depression, and anger. And their justification for rejecting the whole notion of granting human rights to robot is that they are not equal to a human being and they don't experience the equal set of emotions that a human being would get. But I will get to that later. All right. To the first two things that I would do in today's debate, which is number one, I would be providing a comparison of benefits and harm under both sides, and also the analysis of the clashes that has occurred in today's debate throughout the day. Now, firstly, in comparing, in the worst case scenario for our side, the only thing that would be detrimental on our side is that there would be additional legislative costs, and we need to provide more amenities to these robots in terms of providing care for them, such as care in terms of maintenance and also care in terms of power supply and so on. But that is the only thing that is bad for on our side. But these detrimental factors would be mitigated as these robots are provided care. They are able to contribute back to the society. All in all, what I wanted to say is that these costs will eventually be equalized by whatever contributions that they would provide to the society, whether it is a direct contribution or an indirect contribution to the society.
PI.
Whereas the worst case scenario that occurs on side opposition is that what will happen in the future, where human society, once we have incorporated all these sentient robots, especially within our workforce, especially within our society, is that human beings will treat robot harshly, no matter whether it's within the workforce or in the society in general. Why do I say so? In the workforce itself, um, employers would then disregard the fact that robots actually do need rest, robots actually do need constant maintenance, and they will push these robots to work so hard to the point where they will be totally dysfunctional, and they will just discard them away. Bear in mind that in today's debate, we are discussing about robots who are able to feel emotions. We're not talking about normal machineries in factories. We're not talking about all this robotic arms or robotic machineries which can carry out manufacturing. We're not talking about those robots. Yes, probably those robots actually did also, even if we are saying that these robots don't feel emotion, but they also need maintenance once in a while. But we are talking about robots who are able to feel a set of emotions. These emotions include, as I've said earlier, emotions which are negative, such as feeling sadness, anger, and also depression. So when these employers treat this robot harshly, what will happen is that these robots will feel that they are just there for the purpose of fulfilling humanity's existence and nothing much than that. And once they are able to feel that negative emotions, problems would arise, in which we believe that once they are able to achieve human sentience, they would also be able to carry out human related actions such as protests and stuff, which is what I feel would be much more detrimental, and which is why I would like to say that the cost issue here is not only exclusive on our side, but it's also inclusive on side opposition. Secondly, on how the humans will treat robots harshly in the society. Firstly, in terms of respect, we would start to disrespect robots just because they are there to fulfill our existence. They are just there to fulfill our needs, and we will treat them harshly. And at the end of the day, as I've said earlier, once they have started to experience all these negative emotions, there will be a huge trigger which will cause these robots to retaliate against human beings. Yes, this might sound very futuristic. This might sound very fictiony, but at the end of the day, this is the scenario that will occur if we continue to treat these robots without respect. Now, to talk about the best case scenario and the benefit that we get from providing human rights to these sentient robots is that when we provide protection to these robots from the evil in the society, as what my first speaker has mentioned before, there are many evil in the society, such as trespassing of property, trespassing of individual rights, and also harsh treatment in terms of discrimination in the workplace. We are able to protect these robots from all this set of evil actions and provide them a protection as what a normal human being would get. Other than that, we are also acknowledging their ability, their maintenance, which we believe should be taken care of, because we don't want at the end of the day they are just discarded at the scrapyard, and they won't be wanted by the society, because we have to know that once they have gained sentience, they might be able to develop dreams, they might be able to develop aspirations, and these dreams, they, as a normal human being, we want these dreams to be fulfilled before we die. And I believe that as robots who are able to feel emotions, at the end of the day, they want these dreams to be fulfilled before they're discarded in a junkyard. So I guess that by following whatever paradigm that side opposition is bringing today, we are just being so harsh and treating these robots coldly, and we are just giving more avenues or more opportunities for these robots to feel retaliation and anger against human being. And what will happen at the end of the day is that the society might collapse due to the injustice treatment that we are giving towards this robot. With that, I would like to proudly propose to this motion.
Thank you, Mr. Deva. It is now time to listen to the rebuttals of the opposition whip. Ms. Fifi?
All right, just a moment, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, you are audible.
All right. Are you experiencing any lags? Okay, just a moment. Okay. Side government thinks that we're actually being racist towards these robots, thinks that we're actually victimizing these robots, when in the first place we don't think that robots are being constantly disenfranchised within status quo. We don't think that we're being evil to these robots in the first place. And even if we are being sort of evil and we don't take care of these robots, we don't think that's important, because robots are created in the first place to fulfill these human needs. They are created in the first place in order to work long hours, even if they are sentient robots. They are created there in the first place to assist human beings with doing things that human beings are not capable of doing in the first place. Henceforth, I don't think that the whole idea that human beings are actually victimizing these robots are actually true. We don't think that we're actually being harsh towards these robots, because human beings created them to assist to assist our work in um but then again, from all the way from from the first speaker all the way to GovWhip, never once have I heard
Miss Afifi, are you there? Yes, she's freezing. She's frozen. Her video, her video froze. Uh, we have 10 minutes to wait until she comes back.
I'll try to get her. Hello. She says she's reconnecting and she's requesting if we can like restart the speech.
Yeah. What do the adjudicators think?
Is restarting okay with the adjudicators? We have their consent.
I think first we have to restore 10 seconds to her because I think she lost 10 seconds there. But for me, I think just continue where she stopped.
All right. I'll let her know.
The other adjudicators?
I think she froze right after the bell, if I'm not mistaken.
So 1 minute mark?
Yes, 1 minute mark.
Okay, we hear you, Miss Alia from the YouTube.
Audible?
Yes, I think you don't need to open your camera.
Okay, sure.
Oh, wait, let me put you.
So sorry I crashed just now.
It's okay. Okay. Whenever you're ready.
Is it possible to restart from beginning?
Can you continue from where you left on?
Uh, so I'll start all over again.
Um, the timer.
Your original arguments have been recorded, so you can
Sorry?
continue where the original arguments that you made earlier have been recorded. by the education. So if you just continue from there. We have given
Okay.
you we've given you a bit more time to restore some of the time.
Oh, so just continue a 7 minute speech as usual, is it?
Yes, please. But we have restored some of the time that was down. Yeah. So you're starting from the 1 minute mark.
Minutes. Is it still? Do I still have an extra minute, or I have to stop at 7?
You stop at 7, but we have turned back the clock to restore the time.
Okay, sure, sure.
You're starting at the 1 minute mark.
Okay, just a moment. I think the most important thing here to answer is firstly, do robots actually deserve human rights? Because right from the Prime Minister all the way to the GovWhip, never once have I heard them human rights. The only thing that they kept on arguing was that, oh, robots experience overworked, they're exhausted, therefore we feel sorry for them, and they actually do deserve human rights because, yeah, they feel emotions as well. Panel acknowledge that human rights is a huge issue that should not be indicated by just emotions and in and of itself. Why are human rights there in the first place, right? Because human rights are there to give humans dignity, to give humans equality, to give humans fairness. Why? Because they are experiencing social inequality in the first place. They are constantly being disenfranchised within the society, whereby they cannot opt out of the vicious cycle of birth lottery. They are born into a poor family, and it is so hard for them to climb out of that poverty cycle, right? So I think that those are the criteria for you to acknowledge when the instances of when people actually deserve human rights. But in comparison to robots, right? Do they actually are they actually disenfranchised in the first place? Are they born into poor families in the first place? Do they face racial society? We don't think they do, right? So therefore they automatically do not qualify for these factors of why human rights are there in the first place, right? The only
No,
reason
I
why
agree.
they wanted to grant human rights is because they no thank you, because they want because they think that sentience is so important, but they never once even proven to you why sentience is so important, which is why my POI just now is important, right? I asked the speaker, why would you why would you want to use sentience as an indicator for them to make political decisions, right? For example, we think that that is a flaw in the first place because humans panel acknowledge that robots are created by humans in the first place, right? What this means is that humans also have a bias in the first place. What this means is that humans might engineer the algorithms in robots to design to be biased, right? So whatever political decisions or whatever rational decisions that they do later on reflects the biasness of the human beings that created them in the first place. Therefore, their sort of algorithms is unreliable, right? The human rights
No, I
that they
think
want to grant also include the right to life, the right to citizenship, and
Yeah, I
also the
agree.
right to be integrated into the rights to make political decisions, right? This is extremely important because what at the moment when you acknowledge that robots are also part of the society, you also need to make them make important decisions. It's not just about basic rights, right? It's not just about basic rights to be acknowledged within society, but it's also about making important decisions that affect and impact the community as a whole. At that point, we think that robots do not have the capacity to make rational decisions the way human beings do. But even if they do, this is where there is more tendency for them to abuse the human rights granted to them, right? If by logic, human beings can already abuse the human rights given to them, by that same logic, that parallel can also be used to robots. What if these robots actually use the human rights granted to them, to go against human beings, right? What if they also abuse the human rights given to them? Something which government side clearly didn't want to engage on. but they never analyze the trickle down effects and the major repercussions that it has towards human beings as a whole. Yes, POI.
Uh, PI. Okay, so just now you mentioned that since they might have biasness in terms of making political decisions, but do you acknowledge that human beings also have biasness? Sometimes they are being biased from birth, being incorporated with all these political ideologies. Do you think that we should deny all these human beings their rights to vote as well?
No, that's the. I'm telling you that that is the potential. There is potential for human rights to abuse their rights, but that doesn't mean we are going to retrench human beings from their human rights, right? It doesn't make sense. This is why, because the whole idea of me telling you why abuse of power is there means that you shouldn't give robots the rights in the first place, right? If you acknowledge that these are the harms that already exist within status quo, then might as well not give robots any rights at all, so that they won't abuse any form of human rights in the first place, right? So what I've been telling you robots do not deserve human rights. I've also my whole bench has already essentially proven to you the criteria that constitutes human rights to be granted in the first place. Therefore, the whole idea coming from government side on why they deserve human rights false. But then again, let's look at the second idea on how let's look at the a few flaws and assumptions coming from side government, right? So let's look at the nature of a robot, where they said that robots are being victimized and robots also experience overworking. I think that it's important for you to understand that robots are engineered by human beings to have a certain bionic advantage over human beings, right? We think that the whole idea that robots are there in the first place is to help human beings do something that they cannot do. Therefore, therefore, the whole argument of them being overworked false. But then also, when they wanted to talk about integrating robots into workforce, they need to also acknowledge that there are a lot of human beings who still don't have access to jobs, right? So are you saying that impact the community in a positive way? The only marginal benefit that we have from side government is that, oh, okay, when we grant them some human rights, there will be some form of better contribution. These robots will not retaliate against humans. I think that is essentially false, right? Because it's not like humans don't recognize the existential beings of these robots in the first place. We do, but we don't think that the whole idea of sentience should be an indicator of why we need to grant them human rights. Sentience is not the main reason why you need to give human rights. So I think side opposition has won the debate in terms of this indicator. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pifi. Now that we have heard all the three speakers from both teams, we shall take a short break of 1 minute. During this time, both the government and the opposition team will prepare the reply speech. The time of 1 minute has ended. I shall now invite Mr. Zulfadli from the opposition team to deliver the reply speech.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Cool. Sorry, I have to stand. I I just had like a quick accident in the toilet, so I had to stand a bit. Uh, right. See. Starting my speech in. I'll get my timer. Sorry. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. I think my reply speech is going to be simple. Four things. Number one, who fulfilled their roles and burdens. Second, the principal clash. Third, the outcomes that happen on both sides. And last but not least, the characterizations of like which side actually better characterize what this debate is all about, right? Government made it clear that their burden is that sentience is the yardstick for giving any being human rights, and that this will be beneficial to the world. And Op has made it even further clear throughout three speeches that there are other things that actually compound into giving something human rights, and that this will compound in like loss of resources towards the most vulnerable stakeholders. Recognize that it was only opposition who made it clear from the get-go that the most vulnerable people in this debate are people who are currently having their human rights being abused, whether that be women, whether that be minorities, or whether that be like the most people who are being disenfranchised. Recognize that it's been consistent throughout all three speeches that we've been protecting these people, and there's been no response coming from government and no engagement whatsoever. Like the smallest response you get is from WIP telling you that, this is only our worst case scenario, we're losing some form of like administrative costs and like all these like political costs. Recognize that these specific costs are actually what these minorities need to actually level the playing field and actually grant them the human right they deserve. If we are unable to fulfill these rights for these people, why are we giving it to robots in the first place, right? But sure, there's more questions to ask further on. First off, characterization. Notice how that Prime Minister completely asserts that robots feel tired, and there was no nuance regarding to this, and it only came out in opposition with telling that robots overheat or robots require recharging for whatever reason, even though like Sophia even like the recent news about Sophia shows that she's capable of being being awake 24/7. The very fact that all of these characterizations of these robots had to come constructively all the way down to the whip shows to you that the government is already inconsistent and having an unclear idea of what sentient robots are. On the other hand, opposition showed to you clearly that robots don't feel hunger. Robots don't have the same decision making skills that humans make. That the robots' range of suffering is also limited just because of the huge amount of bionic advantage that they have. They don't feel pain to the same degree that humans have when they lose their arms. They don't feel overworked. They've been designed to work long hours. Being consistent on all three species, still no engagement from government side or very weak responses, right? So with that, with characterization. How about principles, right? We already told you from the get-go. If it's true that like sentience is the only yardstick for human rights, why aren't animals being given rights to vote? Why aren't animals being given the rights to get like vacation after being injected with like cosmetic or drugs and whatever, right? Why aren't animals being given the same right? They also have sentience. So many other beings also have sentience, but we don't give them rights anyway. The problem with their principles is that they never want to actually qualify to you what being a robot makes it so unique that you deserve the same rights as a human. Or as our opposition, we showed you the quick uniqueness of humans and why that is basically inconsistent, right? How about outcomes? Outcomes we already showed to you that the opposition still protects the most vulnerable people. Under our world, when you divulge resources to these vulnerable stakeholders, then and only then can we fulfill these human values and actually protect your LGBT minorities, protect women, protect African Americans. Whereas on government side, a lot of their outcomes are only probable at best because it all rests under the assumption that these robots feel tired, although it has been deflected consistently. Even like they were so desperate to actually up to the point where the whip says that if you don't give them human rights, they're gonna like start malfunction. They're gonna start starting revolutions. Or this has already been answered by Fifi quite clearly. We already showed you how we are principally consistent. We actually made it clear that we fulfill our burdens. We characterize what sentient robots actually are. We are the side that we are the side that actually show to you what humans are being made of and why they have human rights and how we give them that. And we show to you the outcomes which look better under our world. Proud to boast.
Thank you for that speech. I shall now call upon Ms. Ailey, the Deputy Prime Minister from the government team, to deliver their reply speech.
Okay, wait, give me a minute. Okay, I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, good morning. I bid to everyone again. I am the Deputy Leader of the government side, and in this session, I would address all the confusion from this debate and reaffirm my team's case and ultimately prove why we have we have a better standing in this debate session. So first of all, let's look at the two different aspects in which the both teams had clashes on and why the government side have provided a better case on these aspects. First of all, on the aspect of emotion, so the government side had considered the potential of emotional appeal on the part of the sentimental robot, where the robot has developed the possibility of developing negative emotions. And that is why we gave the examples of propagandas, of retaliation and such, because such also on depression. And if they are not being cared for in a particular way, the government side has considered the fact that they would develop negative emotions, and we do not disregard this as the opposition team has. Now, the opposition side keeps fixating on the fact that they don't feel tired and they don't feel hungry. We do understand that, yes, we do take that into consideration, but there are other emotions that you cannot disregard in the fact that you are saying they are not hungry, they don't feel tired, therefore they do not need human rights. Also, the next clash is on the needs of the robots, also is seen in this debate. On the side of the government, we have clearly established the fact that robots have certain needs, including the right to be protected from abuse and the right to maintenance. The opposition side, they have come up with the fact that they are not same. First of all, let me widespread. Uh, AI or sentiment robots are not widespread yet in the community. So of course, they are not discriminated because they are not discriminated yet. We, the government side, we are looking to the future. We are looking when the robots become a part of this society, henceforth crumbling the whole argument given by the opposition side. The opposition side has also stated that robots experience that. The opposition side had disregarded the government's view on for the possible future of the sentimental robot uprising in cases in certain circumstances where they are used more than what is present only Sophia today. So they are missing the point on granting robots human rights, and it's not in the fact that to disregard them as beings. Okay, we are not granting them human rights because we want to give them privilege, or they are privileged rights because they will eventually be part of the society, henceforth dominating all of the arguments given by the opposition. We are trying to give them human rights because they will be essentially a part of society, and as part of society, as the opposition side has stated, must be protected. Because they're not discriminated against now, because they don't have abuse now, but in the future. This is a possibility that we cannot disregard. And that is what the opposition side has failed to address and has failed to address. And of course, the the government side has included a more in-depth discussion compared to the opposition side on the question on whether we should grant these sentient robots human rights. Therefore, as the government side has been more comprehensive in this debate and had addressed all the important issues, we urge the floor to support today's motion. With that, I thank you.
Thank you. We have now come to the end of the debate. Debaters are asked to remain in this room while waiting for the adjudicators to make a decision. Adjudicators are reminded to move to the adjudicators discussion room in the Cisco WebEx via the link provided. With that, the House of Parliament is adjourned. Thank you. Adjudicators, do you have the results? Or are you still discussing? Hello, am I audible? Hello. Hello, adjudicators, are you there? May I know if you have the results? Hello, Miss Alia, can you hear me from Adam? Um,
Hello.
may I know if the adjudicators have the results?
Yes,
Because
you, but I think Nani's gonna be the one who announced it.
all right, I just want to know because we need to move on at 10:30 to the second round to the third round.
All right.
Do you want us to present now? Present the verdict?
Yes.
Okay. Hi. Uh, First of all, we'll say that both teams were very close, exceptionally close, but there were some important differences between the two. I'll just give a very quick uh, overview and some points, and then invite Alia and Intan to join in with their points. I'll keep the verdict to the end after the points. The government started off strong. They defined rights and sentience, which was very important. However, I felt that it could have been defined in a way that was more favorable to their arguments. Like sentience is about feeling, about perceptions. Um, so it went into emotions and all that. But what about consciousness? And how does that benefit mankind, right? Or in general, or the economy? Also, the definition of robots could have been stronger, which is the central theme. Robots come in all shapes and sizes, like Siri, like the one Hal in Space Odyssey, or even in Interstellar, which is just a block. Or is this just the AI in a computer? Right. So each of these arguments, or even an arm, a robotic arm in a car factory, if it's connected to a whole system. So without going into the universe of comics and fiction, robots already have a certain trajectory. Like you have those dogs that go around, the mechanical dogs that are being developed by Boston Dynamics. So all these definitions could have been defined by either part to strengthen your case from the get-go. Right. So what we found was throughout there was a lot of focus on emotions, a lot of focus on biasness, bionic. So this sprung up here and there. So at the end of the day, what is the definition for each side? Okay. Um, we felt that the opposition asked a few good questions, like what makes something human, and what is the resource that supports the robots if they are to be given rights. Just like human rights, there is a resource or support group around it, there's a movement around it. What does it look like for the robots? This was not adequately addressed by the government. Um, there were some talk about uh, robot retaliation. While we found that was an easy argument to make, but we haven't even got to the stage where robots are as pervasive. You don't get Siri being refusing a task that you set it, and so on and so forth. So that was a slightly of a reach and futuristic for us to consider. I mean, human rights are given in the UN Charter, but at that time, no one actually asked, what if humans became more evil if we gave them more rights? So there is some equivalence that could be made in terms of at which point human rights was recognized, noting that human rights is a legal framework, it's a policy framework, and so on. So that leads me to my third point. What exactly is the policy that either side is advocating? There was a lot of discussion. Another good question that the government this time on the government side was, what if robots became a part of society?
right? So these are good questions, but the answer has to be crafted in terms of a policy. So what entails a policy that guarantees the right of robots? Does it mean that they are going to be the parts? Is this like a warranty? Is it like replacement of parts that they will not be discarded, right? Then if you had gone down that road, you have opened up a new world of argument like renewable energy, right? Maybe they're the first right to new technology or upgrades. What about the lifetime of a robot, or even the point of ethics? As technology progresses, how do we ensure that robots have certain ethics, right? Right. Arthur C. Clarke talked about the three imperatives, right? Do not harm humans and all that. Okay, so there's a whole world of discussion about robots and sentience, and at which point do they actually become human, right? There are some quarters that say that we are reaching, I don't know what they call the transition point, where machines will outperform humans. So if you had brought in that point, what happens when robots outperform humans? If they do not have robot rights, do we then put them down? Because then they become a real threat to humans in terms of the economy and all that. But as you know, right now, the economy is moving towards automation. Right, so this is a very interesting area of discussion that could have been developed further, right? So generally, we also found that the speakers from the opposition were more consistent in the arguments, more consistent in their rebuttals. The government raised very good points, but could have engaged a bit more the opposition. So the verdict is UTP, congratulations, you won this debate. Can I invite Alia or Intan to add any comments?
Intan?
No, I think they're running a bit of we're running short on time, but I feel like most of the points that you've covered is already got across.
Yeah, I think so. Everything that I just discussed are all already said by mine, and both teams are did really great, and it was an enjoyable debate for me. And yeah, just wanted to say good job to everyone. Good job and congrats.
Okay, well done.
Congratulations, both teams. So I guess we can move on to the next round. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I will end the broadcast here.